In this video, I'm going to talk about the Sheppard Subway Line, the section of it that was built, and the unbuilt extensions. So let's get right in. So, the idea for a subway along Sheppard, or more accurately a line across the northern part of Toronto, dates back to at least the 1960s. Then Mayor of North York, James Service, proposed that the Bloor-Danforth line, which at the time only went as far as Warden and Islington, be extended north through Scarborough and Etobicoke up to the Finch Hydro Corridor and then across the corridor to Yonge Street, forming a loop line. This idea, however, was ignored, but the idea of a subway across northern Toronto did stick around. By the 1980s, commuter travel patterns had begun to shift. Prior to this, most travel was suburb to the downtown core, but now it was turning into suburb to suburb travel. The lack of any crosstown rapid transit north of Bloor became a problem, and most people were forced to drive along Highway 401. Around this time, the Government of Ontario was also proposing its own projects, specifically a commuter rail line via the Finch Hydro Corridor, which was part of the Go ALRT project, which I will discuss in a future video. Around this time as well, Sheppard Avenue began to emerge as a highly used suburb-to-suburb route. As well, the Sheppard bus also saw its ridership numbers increasing, as well as the number of buses needed to run on the route. A lot of these people were people commuting between the developing North York and Scarborough downtown cores. Early proposals for a subway along Sheppard focused specifically on a line between Yonge Street and the Scarborough Town Centre. This line would run along Sheppard Avenue to about Brimley Avenue, and then it would dip south to the Scarborough Centre. The plan was changed to include a western extension to the Spadina extension of Line 1, which would include an extension of that line from Wilson to Downsview. This line would be the centerpiece of the Network 2011 plan. This project was largely pushed by then Mayor of North York, Mel Lastman. Now, just as a brief aside, Mel Lastman entered politics in 1969, running for a position on the North York Board of Control. He was then elected Mayor of North York in 1973, a position he would hold until 1998, when North York was amalgamated into Toronto. He would then be elected Mayor of Toronto and serve one term. Now, back to the 80s, Lastman wanted to turn his sleepy suburb into a bustling city with a downtown that would rival that of Toronto's. He understood, however, that a successful downtown needed more than just cars. It needed rapid transit, and it needed to cater to pedestrians. This is a stark contrast to the typical car-centric urban planning principles of the time in North America. Lastman would intentionally locate his downtown North York along Yonge Street and the subway. This downtown would also include a new city hall, a Board of Education office, and a new central library. Lastman would then convince the TTC to construct a new subway station along Line 1, North York Centre Station, to serve the center of what would be downtown North York. He also rallied behind the Sheppard Subway as he saw that being at a transit crossroads would help further development in the area. This project, as stated before, was the centerpiece of the Network 2011 plan. Now, I already went into a bit more detail on this plan back in my first video on the Eglinton West Subway, which you can find a link to in the description below. But, just as a brief refresher, the Network 2011 project would include a subway on Sheppard Avenue, a subway into the downtown core, and rapid transit lines along Eglinton and into Scarborough. This project was supported by the Bill Davis Conservatives and may have been built had Bill Davis not retired from politics in 1985. That same year, the Conservatives were voted out of power and were replaced by the Liberals, who didn't like Network 2011's $2.1 billion price tag. Of that cost, the Sheppard Subway was estimated to cost around $1 billion in 1985 money. Today, that would be around $2.159 billion. The project was delayed and deferred until the Liberals proposed their own scaled-down version. The Liberals, however, would not last long, as they would soon be voted out of power and replaced by the NDP under Bob Rae, who then further delayed the project for 4 years due to the recent recession. Funding for the line was finally granted in 1994, although by this time costs had ballooned and the recession had also done a number on the province's and Metro Toronto's finances. Phase 1 of the Sheppard Line was now shortened to Don Mills, and the Eglinton West Line, which was by now a full subway line, was also shortened. This was done in an effort to appease the municipalities of North York, Scarborough, Etobicoke, and York to ensure that everyone got their subway lines. This, however, was a short-sighted decision that would ultimately lead to 2 half-built subway lines that didn't really serve anyone. The Eglinton West video goes into more detail from that project's perspective. Just like the Liberals before them, the NDP's time in office was short, as in 1995 they were voted out and replaced by the Conservatives under Mike Harris. Unlike the previous Bill Davis Conservatives, however, the Harris Conservatives ran a government of austerity as part of its self-proclaimed common sense revolution. The Conservatives would then promptly cancel the Eglinton West subway project, and they nearly cancelled the Sheppard Subway as well. However, intense lobbying from Mayor Mel Lastman saved the project from cancellation. Over on Metro Council, the project was rejected at first but went through various revisions, including only building the line to Leslie Street. At one point, Metro Toronto even agreed on digging the tunnels but not building any stations or laying any track. This vote passed by a narrow margin. Yes, this is how hostile the Conservatives were to spending money on the project. We nearly dug the tunnels, but nothing else. Literally nothing more than just some holes in the ground. Metro Council eventually finally agreed to support the plan to Don Mills, but this vote only passed with the narrowest of margins. At the time, Councillor Joe Pantalone supported the project, noting it was a matter of civic equity and that the suburbs deserved good transit that would also bring development. On the other hand, then TTC General Manager David L. Gunn criticized the plan, stating it made no sense to build an expensive new subway when the existing system was strapped for cash to make basic repairs. And if the city wanted to expand transit, it would be better to do so downtown, easing congestion on the busiest parts of the system. All that said, construction on the line began in 1994. The Sheppard Line was constructed using 2 methods. Stations would be built using the standard cut-and-cover method, while the tunnels would be bored by 2 tunnel boring machines, named Rock and Roll. These machines would dig at around a rate of 15 meters per day. The subway would open to the public on November 24, 2002. It is worth noting that early plans for the line included platform screen doors. However, these were left out due to financial constraints. So let's look at the line as it is today. Sheppard-Yonge Station is the first station on the line. This station was constructed in the narrow gap between the current Line 1 platforms and the road level above. The station was constructed with 3 platforms, 2 side and 1 large center platform. This was done to allow boarding and alighting simultaneously on separate platforms, what is referred to as the Spanish solution. However, currently the center platform remains merely roughed in, with trains only serving the side platforms. The eastbound platform is used for active service, while the westbound platform is only used by trains going out of service. There were suggestions during construction that trains would pull onto the westbound platform to drop passengers off, then pull into the tail tracks west of the station, turn around and drive onto the eastbound platform to pick up passengers. This, however, has not happened, and instead trains simply use the diamond crossing east of the station. Currently, the tail tracks are used to store out-of-service trains. There is also connector tracks between the Sheppard Line and Line 1, which allow trains to access Davisville Yard for maintenance. The tail tracks themselves actually extend a fair distance west, all the way to around Senlac Road, a distance of just under a kilometer. For a time, the TTC considered renaming Sheppard Station to Princess Station, in honor of Princess Diana, who died in 1997. This idea, however, was widely panned, and the Spencer family, Diana's family, turned down the request. The next stop along the line is Bayview, which is a pretty innocuous station, being located just east of the intersection and in front of the Bayview Village shopping mall. The station is served by the Bayview bus as well as the Sheppard East bus, which runs parallel to the subway. These connections are at street level, so a transfer is required to change between the bus and the subway. The next stop on the line is BESSARION. This station is a bit of a curiosity though, given its general lack of use and, at least at the time of its opening, being located in the middle of nowhere. The station was constructed to serve future developments on the lands of the former Canadian Tire. However, due to the need for soil remediation, the lands have sat empty for the past 18 years, with development only starting recently. This has led to BESSARION being largely unused and empty, with it consistently ranking as the second least used station in the system, only behind Ellesmere Station in Scarborough. As for connections, the station is only connected to the Sheppard East bus, which is an on-street transfer. Leslie is the next stop on the line. The station is located on the south side of Sheppard Avenue and was built to serve a large planned condo development nearby. The station also features a large off-street bus terminal with 3 bays that serve the Leslie bus. The Silver Hills bus was also supposed to be extended to Leslie Station, however that extension never occurred, with most riders preferring to take it to its current western terminus York Mills. I would guess this is simply because getting the subway from York Mills would only result in a 1-seat train ride into the downtown core, while going to Leslie would require a transfer from the Sheppard line to Line 1 at Sheppard-Yonge Station. The station was also supposed to connect to the GO train network with a connection to Oriole Station. However, the GO station is currently about 1 kilometer south of the subway. There is, however, a plan to move the GO station north to be closer to the subway station. It has been 18 years, and the GO station hasn't moved an inch though. I do wonder if moving the Oriole GO station to Leslie subway station would also make the extension of the Silver Hills bus to Leslie more viable, since a GO train would offer a far faster ride into the downtown core than the subway does. Leslie station is also served by the IKEA shuttle bus, that which takes shoppers to the nearby IKEA store. It is worth noting that east of the station, the line crosses the Don Valley, although you don't get to see it as the bridge is completely enclosed. Don Mills is currently the eastern terminus of the line and features a connection to the nearby Fairview Shopping Center. The station also features a large 14-bay underground bus terminal with connections to both TTC buses as well as York Region buses. The station is also the southern terminus of York Region's Viva Green Line, one of the BRT lines operated by York Region Transit. The station has also since spurred a fair bit of development nearby. After opening, the line's usefulness was brought into question, with it failing to meet its ridership expectations in its first year. The TTC had projected 15 million riders with 1 million new riders. However, the report brought to the Commission only showed the line having 11 million riders total with only 800,000 new ones. The TTC at the time chalked this up to the SARS outbreak and a stale economy. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, as bus routes serving the new line saw a boost in ridership, and the newly created Scarborough Rocket Bus, a route meant to bridge the gap between Scarborough Centre and the Sheppard Subway, saw a very large ridership number, showing there may yet be merit to extending the subway to Scarborough Centre. Financially, the line is a sort of monetary black hole, with the TTC spending a lot of money on the line for what little ridership it has, or at the time had. Former City Councillor Josh Cole, who sat on the TTC board in 2010, reported that the TTC spends approximately $10 per passenger on the Sheppard line. During the 2008 budget crisis, the TTC considered shutting down the Sheppard line on weekends and even entirely in an effort to save money. So we have seen what the line is today, but what about the phases that were never built? This may serve as a good look into not necessarily what could have been, but what could still be, since today, discussion of extending the Sheppard Line has come into vogue yet again. First, we will start with a station that wasn't built on the currently constructed part of the line. Willowdale Station was planned to be a station between Sheppard and Bayview. The station would have connected to the Sheppard East bus and the Willowdale Senlac bus. It was cut from the final design due to local opposition and lack of density in the area, however. While the station wasn't built, the line was built with provisions for a future station at Willowdale Road. So, we will start with the eastern extension, as this would have likely been the first extension back in the 80s and the 90s, and will almost certainly be the first one today if the Sheppard Line is ever extended. After Don Mills, the line would have followed Sheppard Avenue, making its next stop at Consumers Road. This station would have served the large office park in the area and would have also likely connected to the Victoria Park bus. I don't see this station having an off-street bus terminal though. The next stop would have been Victoria Park Avenue. The name of this station may have been Victoria Park North, as at the time the TTC didn't have any hard or fast rules about station naming. It could have also been named Sullivan after the neighborhood it is in. I believe this station would have had an off-street bus terminal to serve the Victoria Park bus, the Pharmacy North bus, and the Huntingwood bus. It is worth noting that during the 1980s, when this project was proposed as part of the Network 2011 plan, this station was supposed to be the eastern terminus of the line. It wasn't until 1994 when the line was scaled back to Don Mills in an effort to save money. As recently as 2003, the TTC suggested extending the Sheppard Line to Victoria Park, with a stop at Consumers Road. This extension was estimated to cost around $2.1 billion at the time. I also recall this extension coming up during the Rob Ford years as a compromise to its vision, although nothing came of it. From here, we enter unknown territory, as everything east of Victoria Park was originally supposed to be part of the Phase 1 extension work, and not the original construction. The station at Warden, which would have been the next stop on the line, may have been called Warden North or Tam O'Shanter. This station would have likely been nothing special, with only an on-street connection to the Warden bus. The next stop on the line would be Kennedy North, possibly called Agincourt. This station would have likely had an off-street bus terminal to connect to the Kennedy bus, the Sheppard East bus, and possibly a split Birchmount bus. I say this because the subway skips Birchmount Road and the large Bay Mills apartment complex there, and I can't see the Birchmount bus just bypassing the subway. I would assume the line would be split with the current Birchmount bus and a new Birchmount North bus. This station would also connect to the nearby Agincourt Mall. The next station on the line would be Agincourt Station. This station would have been an odd one, as according to the official map plan, this station would be located at the intersection of the Stouffville GO line and the CP rail line, essentially in the middle of nowhere. I would wager a guess this station would connect to the Agincourt GO station, which would be moved south from its current position. I find this station's location to be a little nonsensical, given the area it is in and the fact that it is only around 500 meters from the station at Kennedy. I believe in a practical real-world setting, if and when the Sheppard Line is extended, this stop would be cut, since it serves no real purpose, and it would be more trouble than it is worth. Instead, it may be more likely that the stop at Kennedy gets shifted to the east side of the intersection to bring it closer to the current Agincourt GO station. The next stop on the line would be Progress Station, which would likely be near the intersection of Brimley Road and Progress Avenue. Today, this area is mostly industrial, so I assume this station would be hedging its bets on the redevelopment of the area. While there is merit to the idea, and there will no doubt be development in the area, especially with the eventual arrival of the extension of Line 2, most of the development of what is known as the Scarborough Centre Precinct will be centered around McCowan Road to the east, so development over here near Brimley will likely be less intense. As for connections, this station would connect with the Brimley bus and the Kennedy bus via an on-street transfer. The eastern terminus of this extension, and the Sheppard Line in this case, would be here at the Scarborough Centre. Here the subway would connect with Line 3, the TTC's large bus terminal, the Intercity Bus Terminal, as well as the Scarborough Town Centre Shopping Mall and the Scarborough Civic Centre. During the time this line was planned, the idea of an extension of Line 2 wasn't being considered, so the Sheppard Line station would almost certainly be directly below the current Scarborough Centre station. However, with the extension of Line 2 in the works, the new Scarborough Centre station is planned to be about 400 meters east on McCowan Road, so an extension of the Sheppard Line today would likely meet the station there and not the current station. From here, you can fantasize possible extensions further east along Ellesmere Road towards the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, although I wouldn't hedge any bets on that happening. Now that we have looked at what was supposed to happen out east, let's head out west to see that end of the line. This extension would have likely come after the eastern extension, as it is not as important from a network point of view, although you can make the case it does from an operations point of view, and many have. This extension would have been 4 stops. The first station to the west would have been Senlac Road. As stated earlier, the tail tracks of the line today already come quite close to Senlac Road, terminating only about 100 meters east at Welbeck Road. Here you can find an emergency exit which is used by train operators to access the tail tracks where trains are stored for the line. This station ultimately though would have been likely very basic, only connecting to the Willowdale Senlac bus via an on-street connection. The next stop would be Bathurst North, possibly named Earl Bales after the park nearby. East of this station, the Sheppard Line would have to cross a branch of the Don Valley, almost certainly via a bridge, since digging under the valley would be absurd. Hopefully this bridge would be exposed and not sealed up like the one between Leslie and Don Mills. Once again, this would be another innocuous station with connections to the Bathurst bus and the Bathurst North bus. I don't see this station having an off-street bus terminal though, since both bus routes serving the station parallel each other. The next stop would be FAYWOOD Station. Of the 4 stations on this extension, this station would likely be the most nondescript and least used, seeing as it would be located in a relatively quiet area and is served by a relatively quiet bus route. On the topic of bus routes, the station would only be served by the FAYWOOD bus. The line would reach its western terminus at Downsview Station. This station opened in 1996 as a precursor to the eventual western extension of the Sheppard Line. Here, the line would connect with Line 1 and various bus routes. The line would also feature track connections to Line 1 to allow trains to be stored at the Wilson Subway Yard immediately south of the station. It would also allow the TTC to move trains between the 2 branches of Line 1 without having to go all the way around the entire line. It is for this reason that the operational efficiencies have been presented as a reason that this extension should be built. The idea was even floated to construct a single-track tunnel between Sheppard-Yonge and Downsview Station for the sole purpose of allowing the TTC to move equipment more easily across Line 1, although this idea never went anywhere. From here, one could fantasize about extensions of the line to the west, and during the days of the Network 2011 plan, that was seen as a very long-distant goal. The idea being the line would continue west, jump north to the Finch Avenue Hydro Corridor, and travel into Etobicoke before traveling south to meet Line 2 at Kipling. I won't go into this idea since it was both a long-term goal, but also because the idea of a transit line along the Hydro Corridor was and is not new and is present in 2 other unbuilt projects. I will talk about those in a future video. Ultimately, the Sheppard Line as it exists today is a mere shell of what it could have been, but wasn't, simply due to bad timing in the economy and bad luck in regards to political leaders. I won't get into the discussion about the flaws of this line and its problems because the main issue with the line is the song and dance everyone in Toronto already knows. It was a subway built in an area that doesn't justify it, and its ridership numbers are a burden on the system's finances. That said, from a network perspective, the idea of a crosstown line across the northern end of the city is a perfectly reasonable idea. It's just sensible transit planning in this case ran into insensible urban planning. On paper, the idea is sound. In practice, you're building a subway through a sea of suburban sprawl. It's just a case of urban planners at the time not giving a damn about public transit, which ultimately sets sensible transit plans up for failure. Now, on a map, having 3 east-west crosstown lines would further call into question the lack of north-south lines, since there is only really 2 branches of the same line. So this would further justify and drive the point home the need for another north-south line to relieve Line 1. A relief line, if you will. In the end, due to a bad economy, bad politicians, and bad urban planning, the Sheppard Line exists today as a mere 5-stop stubway, and is forever locked in the question of what should we do with it. On one hand, the ridership on the line is so low that it may be hard to justify the high cost of extending the line. On the other hand, the argument can be made that you need to extend the line for its ridership potential to be met. Plans have come along trying to answer this question, with some simply saying to extend the line, while others, during the Transit City era, called for an LRT line to be built. However, ultimately it is this catch-22 of what to do with the Sheppard Line we find ourselves in today, but at some point the question of what to do with the Sheppard Line will be answered. And with that, I will end this story. Thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it and want to see more, please hit that like button and subscribe. I have many more videos on the topic of transit in Toronto that I want to do. And if there's anything you want to say about the Sheppard Line, do not be afraid to comment below. And with that, I'll end this video, and I'll see you next time.